to join us on the line for the latest. Sarah, good evening and thank you for joining us on The Globe.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, Lulu.
Now, Sarah, what's the latest on the ground there? What are the latest developments with these attacks?
Well, in Laikipia, where you reported about, we understand that police arrested 3 people after they were spotted on surveillance cameras trying to gain entry into the Laikipia base, which is a training camp for the British Army. And now in their possession, they're said to have been having cameras. And so they're saying they were probably spies, not really intending to carry out the attack yesterday, but probably at a later date. And so they're being held for questioning. In Lamu, where the attack happened, residents who live near the airport have started fleeing their homes, fearing that there will be reprisals either from the Kenya Defense Forces or from Al-Shabaab remnants, the Al-Shabaab militant group who may be fleeing because there's already a search underway for any of those who may be still left around there. Also because the area has a big forest where it is believed Al-Shabaab militants train. So there are fears that they could also attack villages, keeping in mind that they had attacked passenger buses and 3 people were killed just a day before these attacks happened.
Is there still no clarity as to whether these, the attempted break-in and the attack on the American base where 3 Americans lost their lives, is there any connection? Has there been any connection made between the 2 attempts?
Well, there has been no reports from the police, but they're saying that they have heightened security across the country and they're not leaving anything to chance. So at the moment, until they finish their investigations, we cannot be able to tell quite clearly who these people are and whether they had any connection with the Al-Shabaab militant group or whether they indeed the spying and the attacks that were carried out on Sunday have any relation to this.
Now, Al-Shabaab has been fighting for more than a decade to overthrow the Somali government and have been using the Kenyan territory, which is close to the Somali border. What is, if anything, is the Kenyan government doing or the Kenyan military doing differently to ensure that these attacks stop or come to an end?
Well, if you consider the number of casualties that the country has been suffering in the previous attacks, some people are now saying that this time what happened at the air base and the minimal number of lives that were lost could be because that they are upping their game in terms of securing their borders and also securing the areas that the Al-Shabaab militants could attack. But some people are saying this attack was quite audacious, a base controlled by the U.S. and the Kenyan Defense Forces, and they were able to still get through, carry out a suicide attack and even attempt to gain their way into the areas where these 2 armies control. So it is clear that there's still more to be done by the Kenyan government. And also because there had been signs that attacks were likely to happen, being the festive season, being the high season for the tourist industry, and also considering that there had been attempts and an attack on a passenger bus a previous day, people would have expected that the Kenyan government would have been more vigilant. And indeed, when that attack happened, the police said that they had put up more surveillance and that they were more vigilant. But it is clear that they still need to do more, even though we find that when you're entering a mall, you'll have people checking to see if you're armed or whether you're carrying any explosives. Schools are well secured, churches. The country has really changed in terms of how it secures the country, but it seems every time the militant group seems to be a step ahead of the security personnel.
Now, Sarah, very quickly, what are the people, the Kenyans, saying on the ground where these attacks have taken place in the surrounding areas? And in terms of their safety, and, you touched on, attacks that have also taken place in the past and have Kenyan people having lost their lives. In this particular incident, what's the feeling on the ground?
Disappointment and fear, because for the better part of yesterday morning, all the people who live next to the airport could hear shootouts and gunfire and bombs throughout the morning. But there's also fear that the tourism industry is going to be affected because this has happened in one of the major tourism sites, destinations. Lamu Island, it's a historical site, it's a UN heritage site, and so there are fears that tourism will be affected. In 2014, more than 90 people lost their lives, Kenyan civilians, in this same area, in an area called Mpeketoni, when Al-Shabaab discriminately slashed people with machetes and shot others to death. So there is fear now, and that's why I said people are fleeing their homes, fearing that there are more attacks could happen. It's also, as we wind up, proper to say that the U.S. Africa Command has said that they do not believe this attack has anything to do with the U.S.-Iran tensions that are ongoing at the moment.
All right. Sarah, thank you for joining us this evening. That is our East Africa correspondent, Sarah